Hello to everyone watching. This is Mimamsha from the Surya Nepal Gatha Nepal Literature Festival, and today with me I have a very special guest, Miss Rohini Rana. How are you, ma'am? How do you feel?
Thank you so much. I'm feeling really good because it went off very well. And I would like to thank the organizers of the Nepal Literature Festival. I was really happily surprised to see how beautifully organized the whole show was. Went off with clockwork precision and very well done. Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. What did you enjoy the most about the Surya Nepal Gatha Nepal Literature Festival?
Okay, I just got to attend just the last 2 days of it because I had my own book launch. So what I enjoyed most was all the interactions between all the speakers, the beautiful musical events after the speakers, all the speaking events were over. So the whole thing was extremely well organized, having lunches and dinners in different hotels of Pokhara, all that, and all the volunteers who put in a great effort and did a fantastic job. Thank you.
You had a wonderful session yesterday with Mr. Anil Keshari Shah. Tell us a bit about the experience of the session.
Okay, so the experience of the session was, I liked the topic that we were supposed to discuss, that we discussed yesterday, was Hamro Parampara Ko Swad. That was the topic of discussion. Being translated in English would be the tradition of our taste and the taste buds. So that was a very interesting topic, and we went into it on great length. He asked me about my childhood, about my food experiences in India, coming to Nepal, my married life, all related to food, of course. So it was a very interesting session. Thank you.
Thank you. I enjoyed it very much too. You said that cooking is your life's passion. How did this happen, and what does food mean to you? What does cooking mean to you, ma'am?
Okay. So as you say, cooking is definitely my passion. My whole life revolves around it, and I think it started as a child. I come from a very foodie family, let's say. We delighted in the gastronomical delights, like literally my family were very particular about food. My parents were the first, I think, of the Indian aristocracy to turn their palaces into hotel, which now a lot of them have done. So in 1960, 1st of June, my parents turned our summer palace into a hotel, just a 20-room hotel. And then we had the luxury of having Indian cooks, continental cooks. My mother and my parents were both very, very fond of cooking and eating good food, basically. She was a vegetarian, and the continental cooks would whip up all these fantastic vegetarian continental, like recipes for her. So I grew up with the idea of eating good food. At the lunch table, we would be discussing what are we having for dinner, who's cooking it, So having grown up in that atmosphere, I think really affected me. Then Nainital is a summer hill station of northern India. And in the season, it was called the season, which was the summer months where it wasn't raining and wasn't too cold. All the people would come up, all the good families, from who had houses there would come up to escape the heat of India. And then there would be this round of parties, lunches, dinners, picnics, horse riding. And each house would try to outdo each other, in serving the best meals. We had coffee mornings. So I grew up in that atmosphere, and I think I imbibed a lot of it.
Such a beautiful story. Ma'am, you have 2 cookbooks, if I'm not wrong. The Rana Cookbook, Recipes from the Palaces of Nepal, which was published in 2021, and the recent, the Nepal Cookbook, 108 Regional Recipes. What inspired you to delve into the culinary traditions of Nepal and write your cookbooks?
Okay, so my first endeavor at writing a cookbook started years back. My husband was in the army. He's retired now, and he was posted as a colonel commanding the Purano Gorok battalion at the Supari Tire barrack. Now this was his first big command. He's a very professional soldier, very, very busy. So it was just the dog and me. It was Dusty and me that were, alone most of the time in this beautiful little bungalow in the middle of the jungle. And we really didn't know what to do. We would be looking at each other most of the time. And there the idea of doing a Rana cookbook germinated in my mind. In fact, I wrote out the introduction I like writing. I am a literature student. I did my honors in English literature, which has nothing to do with cooking, of course. But I wrote out the introduction at that time on a foolscap army paper. And literally 35 years later, that's what went into the Rana Cookbook. That is what I wrote. And I wrote out the recipes I wanted, the people I would be trying to get in touch with to get recipes. So that happened a long, long time back. And then I think life took over and I got sidetracked. The children were young, they were going to school, college, working, getting married. So, I was just busy, just busy. So that took us, that wasn't a priority, let's say, at that time. But later I got back to it.
Thank you. I don't know if you can summarize it in a question that I'm going to put next. Tell us in short about the process of writing your cookbooks. How does it work?
Okay. Now, this is very interesting. Great question, because how it works is, first of all, I think to do anything, you have to have a passion for it. You have to be focused and put down, like I would write down my points and my, the whole general idea of what I was going to get and what I would be writing about. In my case, first was the Rana Cookbook, which was that much easier because it was recipes from home. That was food we were eating every day at home. I was literally taught anything about Nepali cooking that I know today is because of my husband's Didi. Her name was Chinya Champa Didi, and she spent the whole of her life with us. She came at the age of 15 to Babarmal, and she died with us. And she didn't ever get married. She was our family, we were her family. So, so she taught me about Nepali cooking, whatever I knew about it. And the second is, I thought, let's make it a little more inclusive. I went out to the other Rana houses. There were 9 Rana prime ministers. So I thought, let's make it inclusive, let everyone feel a part of the book. So I reached out to them and got at least one recipe from each of the other families. So that was a process of, first you get the recipes, excuse me, you get the recipes, then you practice, then you write down, then you taste, then if something's not right, then you either increase this ingredient or, lessen it, and then you cook it again, then you taste it again. So it is a long process, first to perfect the recipe, and then of course the last stage, which is the most interesting in my, thing, because to photograph it. Food photography in today's world is taken to a different level, especially if you do continental food photography. They use sprays, they use glaces, and my photographer told me you can usually never eat the food that you photograph after it because they've used so much stuff on it. In our case, we didn't do that. If we wanted to glaze it, we'd put an extra layer of oil or ghee, just leave the vegetables a little raw so they looked more crisp. In actual life, they would be cooked a little more, right? Just to make them glisten, to look raw. So the styling of the food, to get together the backdrops. Just to tell you a secret, I've used most of my saris for the backdrops of most of my food imagery. That was the first book. And then the second book was very interesting because I had to go out and get all these things.
I'm just mesmerized by how you speak, ma'am. So beautifully put together. Ma'am, you are an army wife, a social worker, entrepreneur, restaurateur. How do you balance wearing so many different hats?
Well, the interesting thing is all these things that you have just quoted happened to me at different times and periods of my life. It wasn't all at once, right? So when I was young and the children were small, I did a lot of social work. I was part of the Family Planning Association under Princess Priksha Shah. And then I moved on to being a member of the Nepal Heritage Society. I was on the main board and one of the fundraising members. I was on the board of both of my children's kindergarten school because that was the teacher's. This was all different things which were interesting. Fundraising was my forte, I think. So even when my husband rose a little in the army, I joined the Srimati Sangh. I was the fundraising, chair there. And then, of course, went on to be the president when my husband was the chief of the army. So it's just different mantles came in different parts of my life. And since I was so fond of cooking, I ran a restaurant as well. So they've happened at different periods. So it wasn't as if I was doing it all at the same time.
Okay. Ma'am, how do you think your background as an army wife has influenced your perspective on food, cooking, and community?
Okay, great. So because of my husband being in the army, we got to travel a lot because he gets posted to different places. We had foreign postings, interior postings, uh, postings in really not easily accessible places like Dipayal, and even at Gajuri, which was just on the main highway from Kathmandu, and the road wasn't good. So 2 hours away from Kathmandu, we wouldn't even get bread. So I would start baking my bread, and things like that. I had this short oven which my mother had given me. So you just plugged it in and put in whatever and hoped that it baked. So, and then in Dipayal, I took the same oven there, and it was really difficult to get any, like the young officers were, of course, without the families. So I would bake buns and make hamburgers for them and make pizza sometimes. Once a week, I would have the officers over for a meal. So that was the army life, and right in the beginning, we didn't even have gas. We would be using wood burning stoves, and because of my passion for cooking, I would go into the kitchen, cook whatever I had to on those wood burning stoves, and enjoy it. So it's just whatever you enjoy doing in life, one must do.
Very interesting. Ma'am, you have researched extensively about Nepali cuisine in your new book, right? So what are some key elements that distinguish Nepali cuisine from other regional cuisines?
Okay, like I said, when my husband was posted in the army, we traveled a lot. So I got into contact with very different communities. And even in Nepal, main thing people asked me after I did my first book was, what are the main spices used in Nepali food which are different to Indian food? Because it comes in our region. And everyone would say Jimmu and Timur. Those are the two spices. Jimmu being Szechuan pepper, and uh, of course Timur being Szechuan pepper, and Jimmu being allium, mountain allium. But if you when we do go into our regional areas, there are so many varieties of spices used. Like when you think of it in eastern Nepal with the Kiratis, with the Kirat communities of the Rais and the Limbus, they used herbs and little spices called chimping and pilunge, which no one has heard of. Now I hear they are available here in Kathmandu at the local stores, but we have never heard of them. And they have this special sour taste and things like that. So Timur is, of course, one of the spices used in the northern area and in Kathmandu and other regions, which is very, very different. But we use a lot of fenugreek seeds, which is methi dana, which is not used so much in India. They used cumin seeds more, for their tarkas, for tempering food. And I think one underrated spice here in Nepal is sesame seeds, which we use a lot more in our food. And it's supposed to have great nutritional value as well.
There's so much to explore. Ma'am, could you tell me how food and literature are connected?
Oh, wow. That's an interesting question because I'm fond of both. Food and literature. That's an interesting one. Well, I think food, when you prepare food, it is an art form. If you take it up to a different level, if you're doing very basic cooking, okay, then of course you're satiating your hunger. But if you take it up to a different level where in today's world, all the cordon bleu chefs are just preparing these minuscule servings of food and which are like pieces of art, So it's like a poem being strung. It's like, when they prepare their food and they're so intense about it and it's like so passionate. So it's like literature. It's like writing a story or weaving a story around the food or writing a poem about the food. So that's, I think, the connection to food and literature.
Ma'am, as a reader, what kind of books do you like to read? You mentioned that you were also a literature student. You must have read a lot of books. Tell us about some of your favorite reads too.
Okay, my favorite reads. I used to love reading the classics, and being a literature student, my poets, Shakespeare, Byron, Keats, so all Tyson, all those. And of course, then when I got married, my mother suddenly realized that I didn't know any home skills as such. So I had to put down my books and pick up the ladder as such. I never looked back. But I'm fond of reading. I'm a avid reader, so I've been part of certain book clubs in Kathmandu, and we do the latest, whatever. We do one classic and one old book, So it's Amitav Ghosh sometimes, and then it's a, it's a Western novelist, and so it's just anything. Like now, right now, I'm reading a book by Namita Gokhale called Lakshmi, right? So that's, I mean, just anything. When you are a reader, you just read whatever you can get your hands on, literally.
I come back to cookbooks again. How do cookbooks help to the appreciation and understanding of Nepali cuisine, both domestically and internationally?
Okay, see, if you are fond of cooking, which a lot of people have got into since the pandemic, I think, since COVID, a lot of people have turned inwards and started cooking themselves. Otherwise, we were going into the culture of fast food. The COVID pandemic has, in some ways, has its plus points where people are cooking at home again. So, if you're fond of food, whenever you're traveling, I think you like to taste the local cuisine, and because I'm a foodie and I like cooking, whichever country I visit, usually at the airport or something, I'll pick up a book on the local cuisine because you've just tasted it. You've been in the country, you want to have at least one meal of the local area, So you pick up, whether it's Turkey or it's Germany or it's, Australia, you just pick up a cookbook and see what is the local cuisine. And I think it reflects not only just the food, it reflects the culture. Like in this latest book of mine, the Nepal Cookbook, 108 regional recipes, I haven't just showcased the food. I've tried to showcase the culture, the topography, the geography, how it affects what I'm cooking or what is grown in that area. That's why they're eating what they're eating, because it's so cold in the mountainous region. That's why they're fermenting. That's why they're smoking and dehydrating the food. So, and then I put in jewelry, fabric. So it's more a showcasing of, let's say, the kaleidoscope of all the ethnic communities.
Thank you. Now we're coming to the end of the interview. What advice would you like to give to aspiring authors or individuals looking to explore and share their cultural heritage through food and cooking?
Okay. Advice would be enjoy the food, first of all, appreciate it, imbibe it, and then, because there are so many video channels these days, and it's the sure shot, fast way. Instead of going through a cookbook and reading the recipe, you just see it cooked in front of you, and that's so much easier. A lot of people have been telling me now to do videos, and I find that a little cumbersome because, it's a lot of work again involved. But I think my advice to them would be to just enjoy what you're doing. And if you have the time and energy for it, because it takes a lot of time and energy and a lot of work, hard work, write books, write your feelings, write your stories, and portray it through food.
Like cooking is your life's passion, eating is my life's passion. I love food. So I'd like to ask this question. What are some of your favorite recipes to cook, and what do you enjoy eating? What cuisines do you enjoy?
See, when you say that you enjoy eating, if I didn't enjoy eating, I wouldn't be in this line at all, right? I love food. I'm a foodie. When I was a child, I was a fat, plump child. So I love food. And my favorite recipes is, because I'm so fond of food, I like to try out all different, let's say, continental recipes as well as the Italian, the Asian. I love Thai food. I love the French food. I love Indian food. I love Nepali food. So it's so difficult to say that, okay, this recipe is my total favorite. But I'll tell you a little story where connected to our home, Bhavan Mall, where whenever we went out for a journey and we came back, that meal would be cooked. Typically, that menu would be cooked every time we came back, whether it was a long journey or short journey. It would be rice, dal, it would be chicken jhol, chicken curry, tariko alu, palunga ku saag, golbena achar. So these 6 items would have to be there, and that was our comfort food. Or whatever we'd eaten throughout the whole journey when we were abroad, that would be our comfort food in coming back. So I think that is my favorite meal.
So, ma'am, any future projects, anything that you've started working on already?
See, it's just been literally 4 days from my last book launch. So right now I'm just breathing, I'm just relaxing, I'm breathing. My husband keeps saying that I should have a trilogy, but let's see. I think he's saying you must do because I love cooking, so he does say your fusion cuisine would be a good, third book. But right now, I want to keep my mind blank and just enjoy and relax in the temporary period I'm in right now. So that's it.
Thank you so much for this conversation. But finally, to our viewers who love food and the viewers of Surya Nepal Gata Nepal Literature Festival, do you have any message?
My message is enjoy your food, love your cuisine, your own regional cuisine of each community that you all belong to. Promote it, eat it. Do not go into fast food because that is not really healthy. And what we eat at home, our dal bhat tarkari, our dhino, kanchemba, might be whatever, dhikri from the tharus, or whether it's the kinema of the east, whatever it is, our local cuisine is so much more healthy and nutritious than the fast food that is so common these days. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.